Hey YouTube, this is Mike, and I just wanted to share a short little snippet from this episode that I really enjoyed. However, if you want to listen to the full episode, either scroll down this post or head to mikejamesreid.com/podcast for the full episode. Thanks and enjoy. Where did Adam Valastro begin, and maybe just walk us through a bit of the journey of your life, and kind of what you think's meaningful to you?
Yeah, cheers. Well, first up, one, thanks for having me. Two, I enjoy the conversations as much as you enjoy them. So it's a two-sided marketplace on this one. All right, so quick backstory for me. I originated in Melbourne, Australia. Moved down with my family to Phillip Island, a small coastal town on the very south of Victoria. And we're about 14 years old, and did my high school down there, finished high school, and briefly did a short stint in the Navy. Did a gap year, which was, fun fact for you. Is that a new one?
I never knew you were in the Navy.
There we go. So did a fun gap year in the Navy. Didn't last the full year because myself and the Navy didn't quite get along. It wasn't the discipline. It wasn't the things. We aced it all. It was just that certain things, especially in the military, you have to be a certain type of person where they need you to conform and do what they need, which is fine, but it wasn't where I could see myself going to or wanting to be. You know, if it was middle of the night and they told us to jump off the back of a boat into the ocean, I'd be like, cool, but I need why? Like, what's the purpose? If I'm going to throw myself off a boat, I just want a reason, like a good enough reason. I'm good. I'm yours. So, you know, that's not that suited to the military. They need somebody that can conform and do kind of their own thing. And that kind of ended there abruptly. And I ended up moving in with my cousin and started working with him. He was a plumber. I kind of got pushed into the trade because I needed to pay rent and I was out on my own, fending for myself. Coming from a Roman Catholic Italian family, breaking tradition and, you know, leaving the military was a big thing in our family because our dad was in the army for a long time. Not going to university was another big kind of like disappointment, I guess, to the rest of the family. The only one in my immediate family that didn't go to university. So yeah, I ended up living with my cousin, and then he was a plumber, started laboring with him, and then started an apprenticeship. He actually was a lifesaver for me, looking after me, took me under his wing and kind of pushed me into the workforce in a good way. I never thought I'd end up as a tradie, but it kind of evolved that way. I loved being in the industry. I loved doing work with my hands. Worked in the industry for about 10 years, worked all over Australia, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but I was still very unfulfilled. And basically I was earning really good cash towards the end of my apprenticeship and as a qualified, but there was always something missing inside. I'd wake up every morning like, there's no fucking way I could do this for the next 50 years. And I was super depressed. I was earning $3,000 a week, but spending $2,000 a week, getting messed up every weekend to try and fill that void, partying a lot, going out, doing a lot of drugs, doing whatever I could to kind of fill the gap, and nothing was working. And I ended up in a pretty downward spiral towards the bottom of my ass. And I was working on a couple of job sites in Perth. There was a few fellas that I knew, and in the space of a week, there was two guys I knew, two other tradies that took their own lives. And for me, it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I then embarked on a journey around the world for the next 3.5 years to try and fill that void, partying a lot, going out, doing a lot of drugs, doing whatever I could to kind of fill the gap, and nothing was working. And I ended up in a pretty downward spiral towards the bottom of my ass. And I was working on a couple of job sites in Perth. There was a few fellas that I knew, and in the space of a week, there was two guys I knew, two other tradies that took their own lives. And for me, it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I then embarked on a journey around the world for the next 3.5 years and basically funded my whole trip using my skills, my hands, and getting an appreciation for what I had lost through using my hands and my trade, and being able to help other people and give back and use what I had to barter my way around the world, basically.
So like that is such I think it's such an amazing way to travel, and it's quite unique. You know, I don't think many people would, at the end of their lives, have traveled for that long, let alone done it in such a creative way. And I love what you said before, which is like, there's no way I could see myself doing this for the next 50 years. And I think that's a really interesting question to ask yourself, because I don't know how often we do ask ourselves that question as to, like, this thing that I'm doing, like, could I see myself doing that for the next 50 years? And I think if you can, then you're probably pretty connected to that. Like, you're passionate about it. There's a real love. There's a real connection to it. Whereas if you feel like you couldn't answer that question yes, then it kind of really makes you question, like, am I on the right path? Am I doing the right thing? Because, if I can't see myself devoting my life to it, then, maybe that's not my life calling. Like, maybe just start there. Like, do you feel, I feel like I feel purpose and finding our calling in life is a really difficult thing to find.
100%.
But I feel like it's got so much baggage around it. Like, there's so much weight of responsibility to try and figure out, like, what is our life calling? What is our purpose? Whatever it may be. How do you think about that? Do you feel like you've got it now? If yes, then why? If not, then, like, how much do you think about that? And where does that question take you in life?
Yeah, that is a very weighted kind of direction where people look at, where people are like, you just got to find your passion and your calling and you've got to find your purpose. But it's one of those things that, for me, it wasn't me looking and searching and sitting in my room for a month and going, I need to find my purpose. I need to find my why. It was like throwing myself out there, following opportunities that arose and following kind of my gut. Like, my gut for me is a massive thing. And for when I disappeared around the world, it wasn't like, oh, I'm just disappearing around the world to find myself. It was disappearing around the world because I was like, I need to enjoy, I need to explore, I need to get out of this environment and see what there is on the other side of the fence. And everything since then evolved and unraveled as a result of me grabbing opportunities along the way and then seeing where they led me, right? So even now, I feel like I found my calling, but my calling now for what my calling will be in 10 years might be totally different, but it might lead me to where that is. It just feels right for me right now to lead me onto that next kind of endeavor. So the big thing for me, though, in regards to purpose isn't about finding that thing that totally fulfills me. It's finding that thing that gives me that guidance to get on and enjoy each day, rather than waking up and going, fuck this, I'm not can't be bothered, right? Where I wake up every day now, I'm exhausted. I have little sleep, but I love doing that because it's something that I have drive in seeing build and grow, and I'm not answering to anybody else. And yes, there is a lot of instability around that, not having that control, but that's kind of a part of it. And if you can kind of succumb to that not having control, that's where kind of all the good stuff starts to happen, where people get a little bit freaked out. Well, yeah, I know, but, I've got to pay the bills. It's like, yeah, cool, I've got to pay bills too. But when your back's against the wall, you find a way to make it happen. You know what I mean? Rather than doing something you actually hate, but it's for a sense of security, but it's almost a false sense of security because it's might not lead to anywhere, or you might get fired, or you might break your leg, and then what? It's like, I just kind of not go with the flow. It's calculated and created now, but once you're on this path, I guess you could call it, of doing your thing, you don't go back. Like, there's no way. I'm super unemployable, Mike, right? And that's because I always question. That's why the military and I didn't get along. It's that whole thing is like, yeah, but why? Like, why am I going to be doing this if I'm not really enjoying it, if I'm not got that drive to do more or want to do more? And yet I have the least amount of resources I've ever had in my life, and yet I feel so in control. It's not funny. And that's, it's a weird way of kind of telling it, but it's almost the unknown that excites me rather than having the fear of the unknown. It's the unknown to expand and the opportunities arise from that.
Do you feel you work better with your back against the wall?
Yeah, 100%. No doubt in my mind, because that's when all the best ideas and all the kind of necessities of everything comes together, all the pieces kind of fall in a line. And even if you think it's not where you thought you were going to be, another door opens and another window of opportunity kind of is created.
How do you balance that against not feeling like you're so overwhelmed all the time, or, you're dealing with so much uncertainty?
Yeah. That took a little bit of work, just in regards, because at the start it's very overwhelming when you go from having control and stability and comfort to go to having nothing, where for me it was just breaking it down into little pieces, right? So not working full time, I know I need X amount to live every week, to pay rent, to eat. I know that if I've got something for my business where there's an upcoming trip, for example, we need X amount of dollars. I have X amount of time to do it. bang, that is the focus of where it's got to go. So you break it down as it happens. If you don't have that direction when those pieces need to be put together, that's when it can unravel. But nothing pitches performance like a deadline. Hey?
One of my favorite sayings is pressure makes diamonds, right? Or success loves a deadline.